So just a little segment before the podcast episode starts. I, for whatever reason, didn't hit record on the video camera. So this is only audio version. So this will be mostly audio. There will be some visual overlays with some of the footage that we got from Halloween Horror Nights. But that is because I did not hit record on the video, and that is my fault. So apologies before it begins, but that is why it may look a little different than usual. So enjoy.
We are going to get into our night at Halloween Horror Nights. I'm very excited to talk about this. So to start off, Jared, what is Halloween Horror Nights?
It's a very optimistic and lighthearted event. Many tidings of joy, if you will.
I think that's the wrong holiday.
I might be mistaken on this. It's Halloween Horror Nights is a seasonal celebration of the horror genre that takes place in Universal Studios Park. There's haunted houses, scare zones that you walk through. So almost like walk through haunted houses as you go from one area to another. There is a show, themed food and drinks, photo ops, merchandise, and more.
Dates for this year are August 30th through November 4th, and the events take place basically Wednesday through Sunday nights every week. The only nights, Mondays and Tuesdays, are usually not included, but it just depends on the week. Yep. So, but prices for a one-day ticket start at $82.99 per person. Express pass prices start at $129 per person. And if you want to know pricing of other ticket offerings and packages, you can go listen to episode 61 and 65 where we talk about that.
Okay, I will go back and listen because I don't remember what I said.
There's the frequent fear pass plus, ultimate fear pass, like just so much.
There's a lot of options.
There's a lot.
Although this year a lot of those are already sold out.
That is true.
So at this point, if you're still wanting to go, you probably and you can still get Express Pass, I'm sure, but
you can still get Express Pass, but Express with the frequent fear passes themselves are no longer available.
Right. And of course, it goes, horror genre. This is a very adult-oriented event, and Universal suggests that it will probably be too much for kids younger than 13, which many people either didn't hear that or didn't care. There were not a lot. There was a decent amount of younger kids I saw around, which every kid's different. I know for our kids, like we were talking about online, I'm like, our daughter would be freaked out. Like our son might laugh because he'd just be like, whatever. But yeah, at least, each kid's different, but this is what they recommend. It's basically like a PG-13 type of event.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, like you said, our kids not ready for it for sure. But anyway, so let's kind of go through our night and how we got there and everything.
Okay.
All right. So
I got up in the morning.
Woke up.
Oh, I didn't know where we were starting.
Brushed my teeth. Yeah. Okay. So, I actually had to take our daughter to, she does, like roller skating on Thursdays. And so we went to do that, and we kind of left early because I was like, I got to leave by 1. I got to leave by 1 because, we got to get to Universal at a certain time.
Because it takes us about 2 hours ish to get to Universal.
Right. And usually with a thing like this, I would leave at like 9 a.m. and we'd have plenty of time and it would be fine. But this day we did not have that luxury. So we left about 1:15, got to Dockside where we were staying that night about 3:15. And I waited in line for 30 minutes to check in. So by the time I got checked in and everything, it was, 10 till 4 and our room was ready, but we were just like, maybe, I don't know if we'll have time to take it to our room.
The good thing is when it's just us and we're only staying, we're only staying one night. This is basically like a 24-hour trip. So I basically had like 4 things with me. So it wasn't that big of a deal to not do it then. But I will say that's one thing about the Universal hotels. I love the Universal hotels. I guess the one aspect I don't enjoy is, when you check in, you have to go to the front desk. It was crazy. There's no like way to do it, like contactless or whatever. And if you don't get there, like if you get there at a time, a lot of people were arriving around the same time. You're going to be waiting in line for a bit for that. So that's one aspect. Yeah. I don't know. It's got to be a Lowe's thing. I would assume that they just don't have the system for it.
Well, if they staffed the front desk more, it would go faster.
You think especially like when we were checking in around like 3:00, you have to assume that's a pretty busy time to be checking into a hotel, as most, they'll even tell you rooms aren't usually available until around 3 or 4 o'clock sometimes.
Exactly.
So yeah, you would think they would have more of a staff there. But this is, I will say, out of all the hotels, obviously there's more rooms at Dockside, Surfside, and even sometimes Cabana Bay. This it's not a new issue, I guess I should say. Like if you are checking in, allow yourself, at least give yourself some buffer room. Like if you're thinking about check in and go here, here, and here, give yourself some time because you could have to wait a little bit when you check in.
And there is the option to do mobile check-in beforehand. You usually get sent an email that says you want to check in. You can click on it and then do all the pre-information that you do with the front desk person if you don't mobile check-in. You do all that online so that when you get there, you can just go to the mobile check-in area. Now, this day, there was one person doing mobile check-in, and the line was about 7 parties deep. So I looked at that, and I looked at the regular line who had probably 20 different parties waiting. And I was like, I'm going to risk it, and I'm going to go in the regular line. Because I was like, that mobile check-in line is moving very slowly. So the person that was in front of me as we walked in the building, they went to mobile check-in. I was like, okay, I'm going to go in the regular, and I'm going to see who gets there first. Guess who got there first?
Well, I know the answer.
It was me. I got there before he even got to the front desk person, and I was walking out of the building, and he was still in line. So I was like, okay. So while mobile check-in is, sometimes can be a great option if you don't want to do all the work at the front desk, it can take longer.
But why would it take longer? You would assume that mobile would be quicker because you've done a lot of the stuff you would have to do normally to check somebody in.
You would think, but there was one person doing mobile check-in, and there were 5 people doing regular. So if you do the math of that,
I don't want to.
Okay, you don't do the math.
I'd rather not do the math.
Okay, what I'm saying is, sometimes it can save you money or save you time. Sometimes it can't. But just FYI.
I mean, I don't know about everybody else. I'm at the point in my life where people say if you do the math, I'm just going to immediately just say no. I would rather not do the math.
I will not ask you to do the math anymore. I promise.
I can jump to conclusions really well. I'll be like, I'll jump to the conclusion that you beat the other person.
Okay.
Like, what was the average time? Don't know. Don't care. I don't know.
All this to say, we went ahead and just parked our car and left our luggage and everything in the car and walked to the bus. And we're like, you know what? It's more important that we get to the bus and get to City Walk, go through security, and get to the park before it closes at 5, because you have to be in the park by 5.
Well, I was going to say we did the stay and scream.
Correct.
So how does stay and scream work?
So stay and scream is just basically early access to the event. And stay and scream puts you in 2 distinct areas. Someone said there was 3. I did not see a third one. I think there was only 2 on our night we went. But the 2 that we had when we went was New York and the World Expo area. Now, each of these areas will let you line up for a particular house before the event officially begins. And then they open as early as 5:15. Now, the event starts at 6:30. But if you get in line for example, if you get in line for Insidious, the further house, you can get in as early as 5:15 in line, and you can get that done. And plus, you get to kind of do all the other houses within that stay and scream area. So in our stay and scream area, when we chose New York, it was Insidious, it was Ghostbusters, and it was The Quiet Place. Now, Triplets of Terror is also in that area, but it did not open until park opened. So that wasn't like advantageous, I guess. The other one is World Expo, and that serves Goblin's Feast, Universal Monsters, Eternal Bloodlines, Slaughter Cinema 2, and the Museum Deadly Exhibit. So we were kind of like, well, which one do we want to do first? I thought about doing World Expo, but the wait times for Quiet Place, Ghostbusters, and Insidious were high the whole night. And it was just best to kind of start there and get them done as quick as possible. Wouldn't you say that was the smartest way to do it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think our assumptions there were correct in terms of how that was going to go.
Yeah, so also we didn't have Express.
Right, yeah, we did not have Express, so this is basically you're trying to figure out the best strategy to get the most out of the night without using Express, which is a challenge in of itself. I will say this is only my second year going to Halloween Horror Nights. So last year, I went with some friends, and it was not a very efficient outing, as my buddy and I both could have gotten early. One of the guys only had a ticket, and so basically he couldn't get in until the event opened. So we waited for that. So we only got 3 houses done last year, And I think we left by like 11 something. So I was like, listen, if we get more than 3 houses done, that's more than I've done before. So I was, and I don't know a lot about this event. So Jamie's done this way more than me. So it was like, hey, whatever you think works best. So that, and I think too, like that was the way to do that.
Yeah. No, it was fine. So we got there as early as we could. We got in line for Quiet Place at about 4:40, and that didn't open until 5:30. So we had a little bit of time to wait. But what did we do while we were waiting?
Well, we went to the bathroom.
Well, that's something people need to know.
We made some friends in line.
We did make some friends in line.
And then I went and got the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man s'more that they had over in that area in the New York area there. So got that. That was $6.99? Yeah,
it was $6.99.
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
I mean, it's something you get for show. It was a s'more. It wasn't anything special. The only thing about it, they have a torch that they're melting it with, or I guess they're not melting it, but you're cooking the marshmallow on top of it. It's not as good as a campfire, s'more. Have you ever had one of those?
Yeah.
You could taste the butane in the marshmallow a little bit, but it was fine. Like it was much more the look of it, the novelty of the marshmallow.
But our Stay Puft guy looked pretty Stay Puffed.
He did. It looked. Yep. I mean, in terms of look wise and presentation, sometimes when you see the product photos and what you actually get doesn't always look the same. This one was pretty close.
And this was at the Ghostbusters food stand that's like right by Transformers, like right there in that alleyway.
Well, not right by, but I mean, it's closer to Fast and Furious there.
Right by the Christmas shop.
Yes, right by the Christmas shop.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, it was over there in that area, and it was like I said, pretty good. But it was about 5:45 until we actually got into the house. So we ended up waiting a little over an hour for that first house. But if we had gotten there, like right before 5 and got in line, it would have been even later before we got started with that first house. So the earlier you get there, the better chances you are toward the front. You get the most done, the quickest.
And you also get some extra time before the rest of the crowd comes in to try and maybe get through one house and get in another one. So it gives you a leg up for sure against everybody else coming in.
Right. And just FYI, Express Pass can be used during Stay and Scream times. And I didn't actually know that. I didn't even think about that. But you can use an Express Pass if you have one during that time. So that kind of made the wait times a little bit different. Not much, but a little bit.
Yeah.
So we did a Quiet Place. We're going to talk about all of these in a minute. We're just going to go through our night first. And then immediately after that, we got in line for Ghostbusters, which I was excited for. And we only waited 30 minutes. I was happy with that. That's not too bad. And then when the park opened at 6:30 and we 6:29, we got out of Ghostbusters and I ran to the Insidious line. I was like, as soon as that park opens, people are just going to make a mad dash to this area. So we hadn't gotten line, and it was posted, I think it was like 55 or 60, and we waited only 32 minutes.
I think it was posted 50 when we got in line. By the time we got out of line, it was showing 60 or 70.
Okay.
Which got much higher later in the night. But we only waited about 30. So those two houses, I mean, we had a pretty good, I guess we'll just call it luck. I don't know if it was just the fact that it was still early. Again, well, and I think sometimes too on the very popular houses, they're kind of trying to push people other places. I mean, theme parks do this, try and push crowds around a little bit, so a higher wait time can deter them a bit to try and spread them out to some other places. So that may have been what's going on, or they may have just anticipated that being the case. But that was nice in the fact that we waited half the time we thought we were going to for the first two houses.
Oh, for sure. And then
the first three, sorry.
The first three, yeah. So we kept going, and we got in line for Triplets of Terror, and we only waited 15 for that one.
There's a good reason for that.
That was our lowest wait of the night, I believe.
Yeah.
So we did 4 houses by 7:30, which I felt was really good.
I was more than I even did the whole event last year. So I was already
just I'm happy.
Yeah.
So after that, we decided to walk through Torture Fair, which is one of the scare zones. What did you think of this one? Torture Fair.
I liked it. I like medieval stuff. A lot of the things that they were doing were things that they actually did back then,
like which are torture devices from medieval times.
Pretty gruesome. So it's but in terms of a scare zone, it was unique in that usually it's it's the same theme. It's like something haunted or something possessed, and this is just like I guess you would just say an evil king and queen that just find. I think the whole story was like they basically just find joy out of torturing people or something along those lines. So
there's a king and queen. There's always a royalty aspect too.
Right. So,
but it was cool.
I thought it was unique and pretty cool, and the area was. I think that was the best well-themed one. I would say they had the music going. I agree. It had the medieval type music playing as well. So it was
like Renaissance fair.
Yeah, and then it was like in the speakers you could hear like crunching and screaming, and so it's like it had this odd like off like unsettling vibe, which obviously is probably what they're going for there. So it's like you have this like kind of happier music coupled with like screams and things. You're just like, oh geez. So it's I like that one. I think that out of all the scare zones, I would say that one was my favorite.
Yeah. I like that one too. So we kept going, and we walked by Major Sweets Candy Factory, and we skipped this one for the night. And why did we skip this one?
Well, it had a bit of a longer wait.
It did.
And at this point in the night, we're kind of like, we didn't know if we're going to be able to hit all the houses. And also, too, if I'm being quite honest, I'm not the biggest horror genre person anyways, but I'm really not a fan of stuff whenever it's like kids being like,
it does
hurt or like kids doing things. So I was just like, I'm good if we don't do that one, if I'll be honest. And I think the wait at that point was like 60 minutes plus for that one.
Was it already that?
It was pretty high. And I was like, I'm good if we don't do that one. I'm good. I'm not gonna I would have done it, but it was like, listen, if we want to do something else, I would prioritize other ones over that one.
That was inside a Fast and Furious ride. So but we skipped that one, and then we walked through the Blumhouse scare zone, which kind of celebrated all of the IPs, like all the movies from Blumhouse, like Black Phone and Megan. Megan was there.
I don't know anything.
Being her craziest.
Yeah, I've heard of them. I just don't know anything about them.
Okay. Well, there was more shown in there, and I can't remember which ones they were, but those are the main two that I was excited about. So, anyways, that was pretty good. And then we went to Diagon Alley to see the Death Eaters.
Yes. We saw the tail end of the show, and then they walk after they do their thing. They kind of walk around Diagon Alley like they're looking for people, and kind of sometimes they'll stop for photos. It's not really meet and greet. Sometimes they'll pose, and sometimes they keep walking. So it's better to probably get video of them. But it is cool. Like they have the green lights out, and
it's mysterious and it's sinister, and
right. And obviously they don't talk, so they're just walking and doing things. But yeah, I mean, it's the Harry Potter stuff is not officially, like this is not an official thing that they'll put in writing as part of Halloween Horror Nights, due to a lot of it is between Warner Brothers, J.K. Rowling, and stuff like that.
Oh, that's a good point. They don't.
If you look at the official wording, they do not say it is part of Halloween Horror Nights. It is just something that's taking place alongside of it. So
I never thought about that.
There is a distinction that they make if you look at it closely. But I mean, so you go in here and they don't do anything else in Diagon Alley Halloween. It's just this going on. And when they're out, I think they have the green lights out during Halloween Horror Nights. Like they kind of like give you that like ominous atmosphere out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not technically a special event part of Halloween Horror Nights. They're just walking around. And again, it's just like a little short show. They don't talk or anything. They're just sort of doing stuff.
But it's cool to see if you get to catch the show. And they're not out. I don't know how often they do the show. I want to say once every hour.
Yeah, I think I remember maybe 4 or 5 times a night. Something like that. Yeah.
Yep. All right. After that, we FaceTimed our kids really quick after that, and then we decided we wanted to eat some food over at the Portofino Bridge. We had a couple of things. You want to talk?
Yeah, we had a couple of things. This was a very busy area. You had a drink stand, and you had a food stand, and it's obviously a very popular area here. So we got the Goblin Pie, and this is a baked mini pie with cinnamon sugar and a bloody raspberry jam. Is an apple pie, is what it's supposed to be in the middle here on that. So
it's a strudel. It's an apple strudel.
It tasted like a toaster strudel. Thought it was really good. Yep. It was $5.99. Yeah, it was. I mean, okay, that price is okay. It wasn't huge. It could have been a little bit bigger, but I did like it. I thought the food was good.
Yeah, it was good.
And then we also got some ghoul juice, and this is Myers Dark Rum, Ball's Cherry Brandy, Simple Syrup, Mango Nectar, Lime Juice, Pimento Bitters, and another type of bitters. Yeah. This was you can get it for $13.50 or $17.50 for a souvenir cup, which we went ahead and got the souvenir cup. I did. Now, again, this is a pre-made mix, so I don't typically like pre-made mixes. So I didn't taste much of the alcohol in it. I don't think you did
Nor
either.
did I.
So it was okay, but I don't think it's worth the price you would pay for this. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, same. I mean, it was very sweet, but if you're gonna have a sweet drink like that and you can't taste the alcohol and it doesn't really do much to you, just get something that's just a sweet drink and no alcohol.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was fine. It was fine. So we decided to go to the next house, which was Slaughter Cinema 2, and we waited 53 minutes for this one, and it was posted for 50, so it was just about right. That line, I think that one was the most brutal line, right?
That was a line that kind of broke me a little bit. Last year, when I went, we waited for The Last of Us house. I mean, it was that line. I think that was the scariest part of the haunted house was the line, because you thought at one point you're like, oh, we're almost there, and then you just look over and there's more. It just never ended. That line broke me last year. So this one was the point where, it was everything. I think part of it too is like before that, like everything was moving pretty quick. And then you typically hit these times when this is when the most people are in the park. And then, we waited all the minutes that it posted there. And plus, one thing you will notice if you go here, the express lines are either there's not many people in line, the line goes quicker, or if the express line is really long, obviously you're going to be waiting longer for those. So I think there was a lot of people going through express at that time. That took a little longer. But
yeah, and the switchbacks, there were 4 switchback lines, but they were really long. So it felt like the line going through was just never ending every time you went. And so anyway, it was just kind of annoying. But anyway, we got through it. We did the house, and again, we'll talk about that in a little bit, what the house was.
We will rank and talk about the houses after this.
So after that, we were like, let's go do the show. Let's go do Nightmare Fuel Nocturnal Circus. So when we got there, it was like, what time was it? 9:20? I want to say it was like around 9:20ish.
Yeah, it was around 9:20. Yeah.
And the show started at 9:30, and you could see them letting people into the theater. And so we saw a line over here. We're like, okay, well, this is the standby line, so we'll just go ahead and get in line. But it was like pretty long, almost to London. And so we're like, okay, so we're in line. We get there, and then walk up, and it stops. Like nobody is moving anymore, and it's like 9:27. I'm like, oh no. This is the line for the next show. And so they had already let everybody into the theater for the 9:30 show. So we would have had to wait an hour and a half for the next show. And I was like, I'm not doing that.
After the last line, Jamie didn't even ask me. And I just was basically like,
no, God, no, God, please, no.
That was essentially me. At that point, I was like, I'm done waiting in lines that long. At least for that, I was like, I wanted to see the show, but I also was not willing to wait an hour or so for it.
Right. We've heard cool things about it, and it's kind of the same iteration, but just different like theming every year. But it was just not going to happen.
Yes.
It was not going to happen. So we decided you were trying to find a beer.
I wanted to try. They had the Hogshead Pumpkin Ale. So I was like, okay. And at this point, walking doesn't bother me. And I think it's because I did legs the day before, which is probably my mistake. But my back was like aching. And normally it doesn't bother me. I think it's just standing so long in the lines. Because normally, again, in theme parks, like we don't typically wait. Like if it's over 30 minutes, we're not usually waiting in line for it.
No.
Like, especially at Universal, we get express pass after 4. So waiting in the lines like that, I think mentally I'm like, I am done with this.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I was like, I'm just going to get a drink. And I went over there and they were out of the pumpkin ale, but I'd waited in line for like 10 minutes. I was like, oh, fine. So I just got an Oktoberfest. I forget what it was called. It wasn't that good. I just drank it relatively quickly because we wanted to go into Goblin's Feast. Or was it Deadly Exhibit?
No, it was Museum.
Okay. That's what I just said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were going to go into the museum Deadly Exhibit. So I drank it pretty quick, took some Excedrin, and I got a little bit of a second wind after that. So,
it's good.
The help of that. But that's what we did after that. So I wanted to try the pumpkin ale because I'm basic in the fall. I love pumpkin stuff. But I guess it was very popular because they said they're waiting on another keg to show up. And I was like, okay.
Oh, well. It's fine.
I shook my fist and then I was like, whatever.
No.
Yeah.
So we did the museum house and we waited about 35 minutes. It was posted 55, I think, 50 or 55. Anyway, it was posted longer than that. And we actually didn't wait that long for that one. And it goes through the queue for the Simpsons ride. So that was fun. Blech. Anyway.
That's Jamie's actual haunted house, is walking through what used to be Back to the Future.
That's my horror
and
movie.
knowing that it is no longer there. That's the scariest thing Jamie saw all night.
It's true. It's pretty scary. So we did that. And then that was the 6th house we had done. So we're like, okay, let's see what the wait is for the other 4 houses. So we hadn't done the monstrous one with the Latin American monsters. We hadn't done the Candy Factory, which we weren't going to do. And we hadn't done Goblin's Feast or the Eternal Bloodlines Universal Monsters one. So we decided to try Goblin's Feast. And it was posted 50 as well. Again, they were all posted like 50, 55, like all through the night. And we waited about 30 for this one. So that was a little bit better. But our feet were hurting. At least mine were.
My feet weren't hurting. I was just my back and stuff was just it's theme park stuff. But at that point too, I was like kind of getting to like waiting in line again for another house. I was like, I could.
Yeah.
But
by this time it was about 11:20, something like that. So we're like, okay, well, let's just we'll go up to the front of the park, and if the monstrous one, the one monstrous house, which is at the front of the park, if it's fine, if the wait time is like below 30, we'll do it. If not, we'll just go. So we kind of sauntered on and we got to Imagination Cafe over in the DreamWorks area and by like E.T. and SpongeBob store, all that. And we decided to get some classic pizza fries because Jared never had it before.
I hadn't, and I was hungry.
So what are pizza fries, Jared?
They kind of are exactly what they sound like. They are fries with marinara sauce, cheese, and pepperoni and sausage on it, essentially.
They're really good.
Oh, I didn't say they weren't good. They are very good. Yeah. They were good.
The spot.
They weren't fresh. They've been sitting there for a little bit, but they were still good.
$11.99 for that. And it's like a Halloween Horror Nights tradition. Like they bring it out every year, but it's not available during the day. So,
yeah.
But anyway, so
we also wanted to, after this, go through we hadn't been through the other scare zones either. So that's the other thing too, was go through the scare zones. Yeah. And then see what the, houses toward the front look like and then make a decision at that point.
Yeah. And like the Swamp Undead scare zone was fine. That was just like a swampy zombie one.
It's very foggy.
It's couldn't see very much.
I like the aesthetics of it. It was really dark, but you walk through the fog and some of the scare actors would kind of, if they saw, they would pop out and get you.
Yeah.
But,
and then the one in Beverly Hills, it was like, is it one long one or like 2 smaller ones? It was hard to tell. It was a sinister and surreal like dual kind of thing, and that was kind of the icon for this year. Mm-hmm. The surreal and sinister, and I think it was a surreal one was there. The sinister one was not so much there. I don't think it was out. I don't think the people were out much when we left.
I think it's supposed to be more of an entrance one.
Okay.
So I'm guessing by the time that at night, they just maybe didn't have much of it there. I think there were some elements there, but yeah, that one didn't seem to be really running.
Right. Maybe it's just us. I don't know. But anyway, so we saw that Monstrous was still like a 35, 40-minute wait. We're like, nope. It was midnight. We were done. So we left.
And we still had to go back to the hotel and all that stuff like that and then shower.
Gosh,
I was like, I'm not going to bed without showering because I felt gross. But
we didn't get back to the hotel until we got back to our room. I got our stuff out of the car, back to the room. It was 1. And so we crashed and everything. But yeah, we were pretty tired.
Yeah. But we got a lot of stuff done. And again, last year I only did 3 houses, so we doubled that, and it was a good time. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And good. I think we'll talk about the houses and then probably give our final thoughts on what we're gonna put everything at.
So I have a ranking of how I like the houses. I don't know if you have made one yet or you just want to go off of mine, but I did rank the houses according to...
Well, we can go off yours. I didn't make a list. You will be shocked to know I didn't do my homework.
That's
but
okay. It's okay.
I will just either agree or distree where you put them. But I don't think ours are going to be too far different.
I don't think so. And I ranked these as we did them. So like I started when I kind of moved the list around as the night went, but this is kind of what I've settled on.
Okay.
So we got to 7 houses, and number 7 for me was the museum deadly exhibit one. And the next 3 in the list, actually, I'm going to talk about these all together. The museum, Triplets of Terror, and Slaughter Cinema 2. These are the 3 that we did on the Unmasking of the Horror tour back in August. Mm-hmm. And we figured out that I think it didn't ruin the houses for us, but I think that we may have enjoyed them a little bit more if we had done the tour after attending the event.
I mean,
do you agree with me?
Yeah, because I think, okay. I mean, doing it before, this is the first year they've done that, where you do it before the event. They normally hadn't done that before. So you obviously, going through those houses, you know where a lot of the scares are. Now, I will say the plus side is there's way more backstory to the houses than you get just walking through. So you do get some of more of the lore, the backstory to it. But I don't know how good the houses were to really begin with, but how good they were going to be, I do feel like seeing the behind the scenes first did kind of, I'm not going to say ruin it, but it wasn't as good as it could have been. Yeah. I personally think Triplets of Terror was worse than Museum. Okay. But it's like one spot. Right. So you put Museum, then Triplets of Terror, then Slaughter Cinema. Yeah. I might flip around Triplets of Terror Museum, but yeah, okay. I feel like Slaughter Cinema could have been really good. It just seemed like it was all too quick. Like the whole point was like you had multiple. The idea again is really cool to drive-in movie theater. It's got a bunch of corny horror movies that are playing,
like corny B movies.
Yeah, and it's got the previews playing outside on the billboard. Like it had a lot of cool aspects. It was just so much stuff where you walk through one and you just get one scene and then you're done, and then you go to the next one. So it's almost like it would have been better if maybe there was more of a story, maybe 2 or 3 less rooms, so it had a little bit more of a story in each one.
Well, each of the movies that is exampled in the house, you see a movie poster before you get into it, but they move you so quick through the house that there's no time to like read them very well or very quickly.
Right.
So I think that's kind of what you're talking about too, is just like not having the time to really absorb it.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that about all the houses in some way too, but yeah.
Especially with this one, because it's just like one scene per house, or one scene per movie, and then you're done. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. But I like that one the best out of the 3 that we did the horror, Unmasking the Horror tour about.
I agree with that one.
Triplets of Terror, I think if you didn't do the tour, you probably would be lost with this one.
That's what I felt like. I mean, the story to this one is there are triplets that when they're children, they, lovingly murder their entire family on their birthday. And then every 10 years, they celebrate their birthday yet again by killing another family. So
they do it
it's a heartwarming tale of, random murder. I don't know.
Don't talk about families and kids around Jared in horror genres. Listen, he don't like it none.
I'm protective, and like I just don't like that stuff. But anyway, but yeah, like going through the house, you get a lot of the backstory about things. So when you're going through it, though, someone did a tour, but when you go through the house, I don't see really how you pick any of that up. You're just walking through, and there's just random. It seems like random sort of killings there.
Yeah, there is one room that'll tell you kind of direct you in that direction of what you're about to see. But again, you walk through it really fast. And
it's already so loud in those houses, and they're like playing. So there's a room where there's like, someone has a quote podcast that's giving you backstory, but like it's so loud. You're going through, you would really have to be listening for that to really understand. You're supposed to listen to that for more story. But there is a room in this house, I will say, that is a lot of people probably would have and will have an issue with, is the in the laundry room with the dog. The
dog.
So that, just to be warned, if you're going to do this, and just be warned on your right side when you're going into that house, you might want to not look
after you go through the kitchen.
Yeah, you may not want to look over there. This one. Yeah, I mean, the concept of it itself, I wasn't really big on to begin with, but in execution, I was like, it's fine. It was pretty quick too. It didn't take very long.
No, it didn't. It was pretty quick. Okay, so the next on my list, so those are the 7, 6, and 5. So number 4 on my list, I put Quiet Place.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, I've never seen these movies, so I was going into it very much, I'm unaware of like any of the stuff going on in there. But this is the first house we did all night. Mm-hmm. I felt like it was a solid house. It was okay. It had some stuff.
Yeah, it was, but it was good. I've seen clips of the first Quiet Place, so I know what it's about.
I know you're supposed to be very quiet.
It's just very quiet. But there was one part where I was like, is that supposed to be Emily Blunt's character to Jared? And she's like, I don't know.
Couldn't tell you.
But I was like, wait, I think this was based on the second movie or whatever. I wasn't really sure. But anyway, I mean, you kind of got the gist of what was going on. Like, you're supposed to be quiet, the monsters, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, essentially there's monsters that are going after you. You know,
yeah, it was good. It was freaky. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything more about Quiet Place.
Nothing really. Yeah, I mean, there weren't again, I'm trying to think of any of the houses really. None of the houses really made me jump or scream or anything like that. This one had a couple of jumps, I'd say. Nothing too scary. I guess you can term it place of scary, like of the other three we're talking about. I don't think any of the other ones too, like Slaughter Cinema, Triples of Terror Museum, like none of those really had major scares.
We also knew where they were.
That's the thing about those houses too. We knew kind of where they would be. But Quiet Place had a couple. Like it was, especially there were some of the monsters that, like some of the set pieces in these houses are like very well done. Like animatronic wise or however they're doing it. It's very good.
Yeah, for real. Okay, my number 3, I put Goblin's Feast.
I agree with this. I like this house a lot.
This one was actually pretty cool.
Well, and this is where they built these houses in the back of these. So these are like brand new buildings that they put these in.
The tents,
essentially, but they are permanent tents. And the set pieces here were very, very well done. The music was like very, like again, happy music. You're going in, but it's goblins that are essentially feeding.
It's like happy Irish music, so it's confusing to your brain. You're like, oh, all this sinister stuff is going on. Like they're eating people and like cooking them.
They're serving them, yeah.
And then you have this Irish happy music. But yeah, the set pieces were great. It was not so scary as it was more like fun.
Yeah, I didn't think this one was scary. I thought again, it had like a water mill at one part of it. It had the set pieces, I think, were really good. It wasn't as scary. But yeah, I felt like it was a very well like executed house in terms of like the way they pulled it off and the theming and stuff.
Yeah. And like the exterior of the tent looked like a old like shack.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it was pretty cool.
Looked like a house in the woods. Yeah.
And the second one I put for my my top 7 would be Insidious. The Insidious one. This scared me. I had started watching the first Insidious a couple weeks ago, and I got about 15-20 minutes in, and I was like, you know what? I'm scared. I turned it off and I walked away. But I got the gist. So I knew when you're walking into the first room, I knew where it was. I was like, okay, I recognize this. I
thought we were just going over to somebody's house for dinner.
Well, really? Jared's like, I think I've seen that grandfather clock at everybody's house. I was like, it's from the movie.
No, there's that grandfather clock they had. I'm telling you, my grandma had that exact same clock. I walked by and was like, I grew up with this
They
clock.
also used it in Stranger Things. So like, I'm sure they just have one.
I got it from my grandma's house.
I had one too, or my grandma did.
Apparently they gave it out to all grandmas back in the day.
But it's true. It definitely had the best scares of the night. And that was because there was one point where there like people like standing up in a line, like as you're supposed to walk through. And some of them are, just mannequins, and some are real people. You don't know who's who. And so that's what's scary to me. And they did it twice.
Well, they did it twice. What made it more... none of it made me jump, but what made you more like, oh, this is freaky is it's not just like a slim thing. It was like a whole full room. So you had like, I would assume 15-ish mannequins or something. And then sprinkled in there, of course, are people.
Yes.
So you're walking through and there's nothing else in there but these things. So you just don't know where people are going to pop out at you.
Right.
I mean, this house had some good scares. I mean,
well, there's one point I was getting scared from all directions.
Yeah.
And I'm in front of Jared, so I'm getting all the scares, which is okay. But if we got to the house, I was like, that was really scary.
What's funny is whether you were behind me or in front of me, they still scared you.
Well, you're close to me, so.
I don't know. I was just saying. But no, this one was, I don't know if I would put this one as, this one could be number 1 for me. I don't know. It's a toss to me 1 or 2. It was a really well done house. Again, not knowing the source material, I haven't seen the movies, nor do I want to, personally speaking. But But yeah, I thought the house wise, like there was a lot of parts that were, they potentially like again, nothing really made me jump, but it could have made you jump, like jumping out or the scares and things. It was a very well executed house, I will say.
Yeah, no, it was very good.
So that's what I meant for those rooms. Suspenseful, walking through there with you're not sure where people are and who's real and who's a mannequin and things.
Yeah, my number one, if you can't tell which one it was the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire one. And so this was not a scary house, except for the last scare. There was a giant frosty guy that scared the crap out of me.
He did get you.
He did get me. But the rest of the house was more like I was really enjoying just walking through it and going, oh my gosh, these set pieces are amazing. And like all of the different props and I got more of the story from this house just walking through it. And I've never seen Frozen Empire.
Yeah.
So I was able to get it, but like seeing it was more nostalgia too, since I'm familiar with this IP. But it was super interesting. Like the dining room that was frozen.
And there was one guy in there, so that it was like everybody was frozen in there, like including
it was like
mannequins.
Old times too.
But there was one guy that was acting frozen who would just all of a sudden startle at you. So that was a pretty good scare. But no, I listen. I love the Ghostbusters. I mean, they even had the part where I always loved as a kid the guns they would use, like the traps that would put the ghost in, and where they like deposit the ghost. They had that part where it looked like it was cold and stuff like that. So a lot of the rooms, like if we had high production value with these, again, I agree. It wasn't. There were jumps, but it wasn't scary.
Yeah,
it was more or less going through, and it did tell more of a story. But I think it was very well done. And there were some parts, like even some of the people playing Ghostbusters would be like, they weren't jumping out and like yelling at you. They just jump up and be like, what are you doing here, or something like that. You're like, oh geez, like they're just not really scares, but just more startling you.
Yeah. So you put that as your second, you think?
I liked that house better. I like Ghostbusters, and again, I'm not really big on the horror genre. I do think Insidious is much more scary. Yeah. So I think in terms of what you're looking for, you could put either one. I would probably. Yeah, I'd probably put Ghostbusters ahead just because I do like Ghostbusters in that. But if you're really looking for scares, Insidious would be the one that you would go for. Which later in the night, that got to like 100+ minute wait for that house. So
it was the highest of the night, I believe.
I'm sure. Yeah, and then a lot of people talked about how that's the scariest house too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
for real. All right, well, that is our ranking for the houses. How did you feel about the event overall, Jared?
I had a good time. I mean, again, last year was more of just a little bit of a taste of it. Last year was the first year with like Premiere. So again, this year, as part of Premiere pass holders, we get to go for free. It's included in the pass Halloween Horror Nights. I thought it was a lot of fun. Again, I'm not a huge horror genre fan. I've said that many times, but the event has its own vibe and sort of culture to it. It's a bit, I will say crowd wise. I mean, you got people drinking, you got people being a little rowdy. There was somebody I did see getting kicked out. Apparently they got into a fight. So you're probably more likely to see some of this type of stuff at this event versus a typical day in the theme park. But I had a good time. I thought it was really good. Now, and I think you're going to agree with me, and what we're going to talk about is the one aspect of it that wasn't the best was just the waiting in lines part.
Right. I mean, that was our only real complaint, was just the line waiting. So I think, next year when we do this, we're going express.
I think so. I mean, again, we get the pass as part of being a Premier pass holder anyway, so it's like it might splurge. I would be curious to see how it would feel doing express versus like how it would be next year with that, because I have a feeling it's probably a quarter of the time you're waiting in lines.
Well, this is my 4th year doing it. In the first 2 years, I did it with Express. Mm-hmm. So I'm familiar with the way it works, and I love it a lot more.
Right.
But the last 2 years, including this one, I haven't used it. And like I said, it's okay. It's just, it's a lot more wear and tear on your feet or your legs, hips, etc. And we're in our 40s. We're no spring chickens over here.
Speak for yourself. I feel great.
I mean, I'm glad you feel great.
Well, listen, I felt, it's not that like, I felt fine. Again, it was really, walking around doesn't bug me. It's just standing in lines. And I think exactly. But I think that was the thing. I'm just not used to doing it either, because we don't typically do that. That was the only complaint I really had, was just and sometimes the lines really don't go anywhere. And really too, it's one thing if you're waiting in line in a ride, a lot of times there's things to do in the queues. And these queues, they're just, they're just there. There's nothing really to pay attention to. Now, one thing I will say that was odd, at least for me, you said they've done this before. On some of the houses, when you go get in line, they would ask how many people, and they're handing you tickets, like carnival type tickets. They did this in like 3 or 4 different houses, but they never collected the tickets. So I'm not sure. I'm assuming this is some deterrent for people like hopping lines.
That's the only thing I can think of.
But nobody's collecting the tickets, so I never was I never understood why they did it. And it was the first time they did it, I was like, okay, and then they didn't collect them, and then over and over again, and I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah.
That was the only thing I really didn't understand about it, but
yeah.
I mean, I would like to see what it's like with Express Pass, and check that out. Probably, I mean, I'm assuming you get done with all the houses beforehand and probably get done around maybe 10 something, 11 something, and
you can do them very quickly.
Yeah. What do you think overall?
I had a great time. I wish we could have done all 10 houses, but that wasn't really realistic with what we were looking for this year. It was kind of more like a chill, more relaxed kind of night. I don't know. I mean, especially when I go with you, I know you're not as like prone to like trying to get everything done, and that's cool. And so I was just trying to be more relaxed.
Yeah, and I basically said I'm along for the ride. I didn't have any it's okay. You're also talking about a genre in which I don't have preferences.
Right.
The only thing I really was like, I do want to do Ghostbusters. I want to do that one, but it's like, would you rather see the house where demons are coming after your soul or families are being murdered? I'm like, you know what? Just surprise me. Like, I'm not really like
terrible.
Either way, I'm like, I'm dying to see the demons. Like, okay, whatever. But.
I do want to mention that since we did this on a Thursday, I would highly recommend to anybody that is over the age of, late 20s and 30s and older to go on a Thursday night or a Sunday night. Do not go on a Friday or Saturday night because the event is just overrun with teenagers.
You mean the youths?
And we were lucky, going on a Thursday night. We did not see, we saw some, like very few teens, but they were always like with their families or.
I saw a couple of groups of them, but I didn't see them really.
But they had been like college age or something. I'm talking about like high schoolers.
I saw a group that was probably high schoolers.
Okay. But what I'm saying is like the event can be overrun with these teens. So you just have to be really careful, especially on the weekends. So I recommend going Thursday and Sundays.
And that's because there's been a lot of reports, which kind of happens every year, where some of the teenagers in groups are, not behaving properly. As you might imagine, teenagers sometimes can, not behave how they should, perhaps. And there's been some instances as well where maybe team members have been hurt by some of the stuff. So that's just something to keep in mind. I do wonder if, as the event grows, I do wonder if they end up maybe having some sort of chaperone policy next year. I don't think they would do it this year, but you've seen other theme parks do this. It wouldn't be
exactly.
But the other thing about it, and I guess, do we want to bring up the whole thing about the patent for the AI thing that I talked about on the other video?
No.
Okay. I was saying that could be a news story as well, but I mean, you've seen other theme parks implement these same policies, so I won't be shocked if they do that next. Now, they wouldn't do it this year just because people have already bought tickets, and that would be a whole thing, but I wouldn't be shocked if they did it next year. Just again, as the event grows and popularity, and the last thing that they want is an issue, that's going to deter people or going to give the event a bad look and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I don't have anything else to add, I don't think. Do you? Anything else you want to mention? Oh, the popcorn bucket. The Little Boo popcorn bucket was everywhere. That's pretty popular. We saw the tribute store.
Oh, yeah, we did. Yeah, we saw the tribute store. It
was cool.
It was fine. Yeah.
It looked like an alleyway graffiti.
I like to hang out in dark alleyways. So.
And then it was like an abandoned subway station at the very end. So that was cool.
It was very well themed. Some of the merchandise seemed like they have a lot of the Little Boo stuff.
A lot of redundant.
I'm guessing they probably have a lot of extras of that. Yeah, I mean,
Stay Puft Marshmallow Man shoulder plush and the Little Boo shoulder plush that goes right on your shoulder. It sold out. Can't get them.
Yeah, those are popular. People like things on their shoulders.
Yes, they do. But anyway, I think that's it. So
yeah, and I will say the event, like Universal as a whole, their food is getting better at it, like especially events. And I think they're getting better with theme park food in general. So I was happy. Like we didn't try a bunch, but the little that we did try, I was like, that was really good. So I think they're getting better on that end of it. Yeah, I mean, again, I had a lot of fun for a genre that I don't care for, but it was nice. I got to finally go with you, so that was nice.
Yes.
And I got more done than I did last year. So all in all, it was a win.
Win.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I was very tired the next day, but that's fine.
As one is,
Yeah, it happens.